Not surprising that there was talk of a subpoena in that meeting that the president's attorneys had with the special counsel and his deputy James Quarles back in early March. A few weeks ago, Fox News reported we had been told that after the Michael Cohen investigation, that the negotiations for a potential interview between the president and Robert Mueller were still ongoing. The person told Fox News, quote, "What's the alternative to an interview? A subpoena to appear before a grand jury? The threat of a subpoena has always been out there. What we are learning more about today, though, is the content of that meeting that prompted the quote about what's the alternative, a subpoena." President's then lead outside attorney John Dowd confirmed to Fox News that he told Mueller and his deputy, James Quarles, that this isn't some game. You are screwing with the work of the President of the United States. According to Dowd, Mueller responded by saying, well, he could always issue a subpoena to compel the president to testify before a grand jury. Certainly there is historical precedent for that. Remember, Bill Clinton was subpoenaed in the Monica Lewinsky investigation, though he eventually sat down voluntarily for an interview. Robert Mueller's former assistant, Michael Zeldin, talked about all of this earlier this morning. Listen here.
I think what we saw was a breakdown in communications between former attorney Dowd and Mueller, where Mueller and Dowd were trying to work out a deal for the voluntary testimony. Dowd wouldn't budge. Mueller said, if you don't budge, I'm going to subpoena you. That subpoena is something that I think I will prevail on, and so make your choice.
Dowd is a fierce defender of the president, but denies to Fox News that he was the source of either this leak or the leak of questions that were published in the New York Times on Monday night. The president this morning weighing in with a tweet saying, you know, there are a lot of other things going on in the world besides the Mueller investigation, but let me also talk about the Mueller investigation as well. The president tweeting, there was no collusion, it is a hoax, and there is no obstruction of justice. That is a setup and a trap. What there is negotiations going on with North Korea over nuclear war, negotiations going on with China over trade deficits, negotiations on NAFTA, and much more witch hunt. So the president clearly, Sandra, is pushing back against all of this. But, you know, the fact that there is that threat, if you want to call it, of a subpoena out there may, in fact, compel the president to sit down with Mueller in some way, shape, or form.
More on that coming up. John, meanwhile, what is the White House saying about the revelations from Trump's former doctor about his health records and claims Trump associates raided his office?
Well, the White House is pushing back strongly against that. Let me get to that in just a second. But there's a new allegation that's been raised by Bornstein. And that allegation, we haven't heard from the White House on this yet, is that the statement that Bornstein put out about the president's health during the campaign was dictated to him by President Trump. Bornstein wrote, if elected, Mr. Trump, I can state unequivocally, will be the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency. In an interview, Bornstein says that he dictated that whole letter. I didn't write that letter. I just made it up as I went along. The White House also pushing back against the claims that Bornstein leveled against Keith Schiller, the president's former head of security and former director of Oval Office operations, and Alan Garten, Trump Organization attorney, that in February, a couple of days after Bornstein had revealed that the president was taking Propecia to combat hair loss, he revealed that to the New York Times, that Schiller and Garten came in and raided his office, taking all of the president's records. The White House pushing back against that yesterday, saying, look, there was no raid, and it's protocol for a president's personal physician to turn records over to the White House medical unit. Listen here.
As is standard operating procedure for a new president, the White House medical unit took possession of the president's medical records.
Again, nothing from the White House yet in this latest allegation that the president dictated that health report, but we'll keep digging.